The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our second Women in Fenestration webinar of 2024. I'm super excited to have everybody join us today. So today we are talking about mentoring. This is the first webinar of our two-part series about mentorship. So today is all about what being a great mentor is about. And our second webinar that we will be hosting on August 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time will be about finding the right mentor for you. So whether both of these webinars are meant for you or not, we'd love to have you join us. They're going to be wonderful. So make sure to mark your calendars for August 14th for our upcoming webinar, and I will be sure to put that registration link in the chat for you all. So just a couple of logistical items here. The chat feature should be working for everybody. The question feature should be working. So if you have questions or comments, feel free to put them in there. But we want today to be all about you and be super engaging. So feel free, turn on your cameras, unmute yourself, chime in. You have all that capability here today. If anybody's having any issues or concerns with technology, please send me a chat and I'll be sure to help you the best I can. All right. So I am just super excited to get this kicked off. I'm just going to do a little brief intro here of our presenters today. So we have Lisa and Heidi from Puzzle HR. And so Puzzle HR, just a little bit of information, they are the leading provider of HR services dedicated to transforming the way organizations manage their human resources. So they focus on delivering innovative and customized HR solutions to help businesses navigate the complexities of HR organizational success. So without further ado, I'm going to let Lisa and Heidi introduce themselves, and I'm just going to bug off. So it is all yours, ladies. I know they're going to have question time at the end. So yeah, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much and welcome, you guys. We're so happy that you're here. Marion, great job introducing us in Puzzle HR. Plenty more to know. If you're interested, please let any of the three of us know. But my name is Lisa Marie Kernan. I've been developing leaders for a long time. As I get older, it's harder to admit for how long that has been. But today, what I hope to share with you is my experience in regards to how wonderful and gratifying and reciprocal a mentor relationship can be. So I'm going to turn this over to Heidi and then we'll get started.
Hi, everyone. I am Heidi Hernandez. I'm one of the learning consultants at Puzzle HR. I partner right up next to Lisa, and we have built a fantastic mentor program here at Puzzle HR. So it's something very near and dear to me. We've seen tremendous amount of success here in our internal organization and with clients. And I too have been in people development for longer than I care to share.
Right?
A long time. Yes, but this is absolutely our passion, people development, so you can go out and do the things that you want to do. So great to see everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. And please join in. As Marion said, today is interactive. And with that, let's just talk a little bit about rules of engagement. Working with Puzzle HR, we know how difficult it sometimes can be in a completely virtual environment. And if you are in a completely virtual environment, then you are starting to, or probably already have, a deep affection for your camera, right? One of the things we used to avoid at all costs, and now I don't know what I would do with it. So cameras on so that we can see you. If you want to chat with us, we'd love to hear from you. Take some notes. We know as adult learners that if you write it down, you're better to retain it. Try to avoid multitasking. I've got 60 minutes of you, and Heidi has the same 60 minutes. And what we'd like to have you do is try and give yourself the grace of being present here with us so that what you wanted to get out of this seminar is something that you give yourself as a gift today. Stay engaged, but ask questions, right? Your curiosity is the best way to pull out all the knowledge that Heidi and I have. And so any questions you have, whether you want to put it in the question section or you just want to spout it out, we're happy to accept them. You really can't really get us off path, so don't worry about it. And let's try to have some fun. Okay? Deal? Deal. All right. So Marion, would you mind launching the poll for me right now? That would be so helpful if I could get an idea of the number of folks who have one, haven't had one, need one to improve. Do not have one, would like to implement. Okay, moving.
Okay. This is exciting. I like on the
Yeah,
spot
this
poll.
is really cool. So 50-50 right now. 50-50.
Right.
We've got people who have one and need to improve it, and people who don't have one but want to implement. 7-14. Okay. All right, we got 70% of you voted. So I'm going to say we go. So
We go.
Here's what I want you to think about. What can you pull out of the salient points that Heidi and I are going to give you today to help you either implement a session? And honestly, if you're looking for kind of a blueprint on how you do that, I think you'll find the combination of both of these sessions today, how to be a mentor, and next month, how to pick one, will give you a really nice kind of blueprint to follow. For those of you that have one and want to improve it, no brainer. We're going to give you some of the best practices we know of, and hopefully we share amongst each other so that you have best practices from many women in the same organization and industry as you. Okay. But first, I'm going to ask you to kind of internalize these questions. I want you to think about someone who's had a profound impact on your career. And what did they do to leave such a lasting impact on you professionally? So I'm going to give you a minute, and then I'm going to ask you guys to share.
We need music in the background, right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Like some little Jeopardy music.
We could do Alex, yeah. All right. I can't see you folks, but I know you can see me. So I'm just going to ask that you shout out to me who you've identified. Not necessarily who you've identified, but what position did they hold in your life? And how did they leave that lasting impact? I think you have to unmute yourself, but you have every right to do that. Maybe they're in chat. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm peeking in there. I don't see anything.
I don't see anybody chatting either.
Not yet.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll share my stories with you guys. And if you want to, in the meantime, type into the chat some of the things that you were hoping to be able to share. We'd love to accept them. I have two different mentors in my career. I've been inside of my career since I was very young. I went to school and immediately went to work and literally had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. Some days I'm not even sure I'm doing what I wanted to be when I grow up, but nevertheless, I went into sales because I felt like I was born to be a salesperson. My dad owned his own kind of retail establishment and he was in sales. And my mother was a Rochester-wide known real estate agent. And so I thought, my God, I must be born to go into sales. And so I did. But I want to tell you, going into sales and being successful in sales are two very different decisions. And I was so fortunate to be graced, honestly, blessed with my mentor, who was a gentleman by the name of Tony Tortorella. He was young as well, not as young as me, but young. But he had such an amazing way of really being able to sort of get straight to the point, very directional without being kind of pushy or bossy. And he said to me one day, there's a couple of things, Lise, that will leave the most lasting impression on somebody. And he told me what they were. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I mean, I can't argue. I can't disagree. So I'm going to go with this. Right? And these were some of the most basic things. I'll give you an example. The first thing he said to me is, you should be able to get your thought across in no more than 7 to 10 sentences. And I was like, oh, because, you know, at the time we were writing central office memos. Central office memos from me could be 6 pages long. And he's like, no, 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 nobody's reading that, Lise. And those were the types of things where I thought, if I keep paying attention to the small little tidbits that people are giving me, I'm going to go far in this. And that is how, candidly, I chose the 2 mentors that I ended up having. I learned very different things from both of those people. But I will tell you that I would not be who I am or as proud of who I am without those people. And I hope for each one of you that you have that or have been that for somebody else in your career, because it is a gift to have it and also to give it. So let's talk a little bit about the definition of a mentor in business. Did you know that 91% of their employees, or 91% of their of employees, are happy in their role when they have a mentor? That's amazing. 91% with an effective mentor are happy in their role. And isn't that what we as leaders in organizations, or even individual contributors in an organization, isn't happiness where we spend a great deal of our time really important to us? I think it's huge, right? The other thing is retention rates go up. When you have people who are satisfied with what they're getting, learning, being appreciated for, getting recognition, you're going to have people who stay around, right? And listen, we all know in business that our biggest expense is human resources. So if a mentor program could increase the happiness and the retention, it seems like a no-brainer. The last thing that I want to share with you is people who are mentored are promoted 5 times more. Now, what does that say to you? If you don't have a mentor, you might want to run out and grab one, right? We're going to help you understand the beauty of having a mentor. And if you're looking to get promoted and you know that there are things that you should be working on, even if it's not something somebody told you, but you just know, I have to work on my emotional intelligence, or I know I have to work on my communication style, or I know that resolution of conflict is tough for me. Find somebody that you love the way they do it, right? And start that relationship. But before you do have that relationship, there's a difference between 3 different roles. And what I want to talk with you about is the difference between a counselor, a coach, and what we're talking about today, which is a mentor. So your counselor is one of those folks who kind of never gives you the answer, right? They're just drawing out of you your own learning. They're encouraging you to reflect back on what you would change or how you would do it differently. And that role is important. I don't think that any of these 3 roles is less important, but what we're talking about today is really finding that mentor, right? Now, a coach is somebody who's inspiring you to move forward, constantly coaching you to say, nope, try it again this way. You can do this. I have the utmost faith in you, right? And a mentor is somebody who does both of those things side by side, right? And so when I tell you there's a difference, I will stand true to that, but I will also say that as a mentor working side by side with you in your own growth, you're going to need some of those coaching behaviors. You're going to need some of those counseling behaviors, right? And that relationship is based on, that mentee-mentor relationship is based on a mutual trust. I said a few minutes ago, it's also reciprocal. And we're going to talk about that as we move forward. But Heidi, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, first of all, I'm so excited to even talk about this topic because I want to jump right out of my skin because I believe so heavily in it. We've seen such traction with our clients that have implemented programs and in our own internal organization. And then throughout my career, I've seen the impact that it's made on me and how far it's gotten me and then those around me. But when you think about, this is kind of a level set page, because we use in the business world all three of these interchangeably. And so for this purpose, we wanted you to understand a mentor is somebody that's walking with you side by side to move you to where you want to be. There's no cost involved typically. Usually it's a very informal type of a thing, like you mentioned, Lisa. So it can be either a structured program that the business sets up, right? Like we did here at Puzzle HR for a very specific reason, or a mentor program can really just be kind of like informal, like you mentioned, Lisa. So Tony, wanted to pour into you. He's been where you were, and he could see that you needed to move forward, but it is kind of a side-by-side thing. Coaches are always trying to get you to move forward. Usually there's a cost involved, like a career coach. Sure. And they ask you a lot of those good open-ended questions, like, where do you want to go? Okay, how are you going to get there? So they're always trying to move you forward in your thought patterns and in your behaviors, and then counselors are always going back. So just to make sure that we're all singing from the same sheet of music, that's what we're talking about when we talk about a mentor, either informal programs or a formalized program that your business has set up or has not set up in some of y'all's cases a second ago, based on the poll.
Yeah. Thank you. That was really good differentiation about that forward looking and reflection. I think that point was made beautifully. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay. So what makes a great mentor? Well, you guys might have a million ideas of what you'd want out of a mentor, and maybe you don't, right? Maybe you don't know. And so what Heidi and Mary and I hope is that we can talk a little bit about what makes a great mentor, whether you're looking for one or you're considering being one. So let's look at the biggest, not the biggest, but commitment is a big one, right? You have to have somebody who is committed to communication. So we are going to go through this like the C's. This is all the C's of what makes a great mentor. The first thing really is commitment, and commitment to seeing you side by side grow, right? It's also a commitment to your job satisfaction. It's making sure that while you're growing, you're also keeping satisfied with what you're currently doing, how it's going, what that benefits you, and where it might take you. And the next thing is communication, which I'm sure doesn't surprise anybody. Open and honest communication is crucial in mentoring. And it's crucial because if we don't have clear communication, I may say something that I think you understand, and you may walk away from me and say, I don't know what she said. I can't change my behavior because of that, right?
You did not say it in your 6 to 7 sentences like Tony told you to do, right?
Right.
That's not what you did. Yeah, right. Exactly.
I went my 6 pages and now you're confused. And that happens. And that happens. So communication is key. Now, the next C, I'm sure won't surprise anybody. Collaborating with your mentor. That is working towards a common goal together. Setting up the idea of how are we going to get there? What are the things I need to do? And how are you going to support me? Right? Those are the types of things that open up all types of collaboration. When you have that commitment, the communication, you start to collaborate based on a common goal of moving forward, right? The other thing that you have to have is confidentiality. Trust is something we're going to talk about in a few minutes, but this confidentiality is essential. It's essential to both parties. Because what has to be there is not only a confidentiality clause, but it's the respect of knowing I'm going to be vulnerable with you and share things about myself and my learnings that I might not let everybody else into. And you're going to do the same. You're going to open up with me about what troubles you, what concerns you, right? And that relationship has to be sacred. So if you don't think you can do that with somebody, then you have to be open about that, right? You're sharing something with me that I can't not share. But that part of that is just the real rawness of the exposure that this relationship allows. And that vulnerability is really important. So keeping in mind the confidentiality between the two of you is really imperative.
For sure.
All right, can anybody guess what the next C is? Feedback.
That's not a C.
No, but it's
Just
constructive feedback. And listen, you guys, constructive feedback it's the lifeline of this. Being able to redirect or recognize somebody timely, effectively, and how they need it comes with every of the other C's that came before it, right? So in order for me to know that it's important that we sit down and we have this conversation versus an I am, or the opposite. It's important to you that I immediately I am you versus waiting for the opportunity to sit down and have that conversation. However it happens, and in whatever kind of game plan you have surrounding that, constructive feedback for redirection or recognition is critical. Really, really critical. And then consistency. We don't want to be developed by somebody that we cannot anticipate the way that they're going to keep us moving forward or ask us to reflect. That consistency in any relationship, honestly, is really important, right? How many of you have ever walked into a room with somebody that you know very well and you're shocked by their reaction? It happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That inconsistency can lead to me telling myself a story about all of a sudden maybe our relationship isn't that great. And so the consistency of how you interact, how you communicate, when feedback is given, when expectations are set, those types of consistent interactions is really critical to the wholesomeness of that relationship. So I'm going to stop for a minute because I'm certain Heidi has something she'd like to add. She'd like to add, my love.
As I was looking across this sheet, this deck page that you guys are looking at, it probably seems very fundamental. These C's all seem probably very fundamental, and you are not incorrect, my friends. You are absolutely spot on. When you think about, do I have what it takes to mentor someone, whether, again, it's a formalized program or informal, you have certain hard skills, right? Like job competencies, job knowledge, experience in the industry. You know how to build a handbook, or you know how to do doors and windows or installation, and all of the things that you guys do really well that are the tangibles. But most of what it takes to be a really awesome mentor, when we had you think about someone that impacted you, it's all these soft skills. So most of it is soft skill development when you think about who am I as a mentor. And so my encouragement to you guys would be, as you look at this page of C's, to pick one where you feel like you're really strong just right now. I know that I'm really good with consistency or communication, right? Whatever that is, and jot that down. And then pick one that you feel like is your area of opportunity. And
Brilliant.
As you're kind of moving into your mentorship, focus more on your strength first, right? So often we can focus just on our weakness, and that's where discouragement sets in. But let's build up your strength first, right? And get that really strong. For example, if, communication is where I feel like I'm strong, how can I get tighter with my communication? Say more with less words, right, Lisa? like Tony encouraged you to do. I have the same problem. I'm like, so too much. Stop talking so much. Right. So let's, be more concise, not so much words. What are you really trying to say? And those types of things. Or if it's confidentiality, what really needs to be shared with anybody else? Because sometimes, I'll say here at Puzzle HR, we have a formalized mentor program whenever new hires get hired into the organization to fast forward their learning. And as mentors, we're not their supervisor. And they absolutely will always tell us things that they do not share with their leaders, their supervisors, or their managers, or the executive level leadership team, because there's a gap between, a high title, right, Lisa, and them. And so they're afraid to say, I don't know this. or you hired me to do this, but I'm scared I don't know
Yeah.
the right way to do it because it admits
Right.
vulnerability, right? And so they're going to share things like that with you. And some of those things we don't need to repeat back because they will learn it and we can help them grow. But just focus on one area where you're strong and one area where you have an opportunity, and focus more on that strength as you want to develop something. There's a lot of good resources out there for you.
Tons of resources, which brings me to materials. In the top ribbon, there is a piece of paper with a paper clip. If you click on that, you will have materials and resources that help to substantiate what Heidi and I are sharing with you this morning. So, brilliant advice. Don't try to concentrate on everything, right? Let's eat this elephant one bite at a time. Where am I strong? And what is the next important thing for me to start working on? Because we only really do that with concerted effort. And so one at a time is really the best approach.
Agreed.
Truly.
Here's another C too that just hit my brain because it's so essential. I know we're going to talk about it in a second, but cheerleader, hopefully that doesn't make anyone eye roll. I'm not talking about the actual cheerleader, but here, just because of we're speaking in C's, folks. It really makes a huge difference if you have someone breathing life, breathing the wind in your sails, telling you got this. There's been so many times in my role here where insecurity flares, and my mentor, who happens to sit on our team, is always telling me I wouldn't have done anything different. You nailed it. I would completely turn this whole project over to you. Here's one little tweak, but keep doing what you're doing. Like full cheerleader happening right there. And what does that do for you? What does that do for me? That keeps you moving forward as opposed to stuck and sad, right? So cheerleader, we should add.
It's so true. It's that role of, I want you to feel the good in you that I see, right? As your mentor, it's that constant cheerleading of, that's okay, right? If we don't learn from our lessons, we have a problem. But if we learn from the things that we thought we did incorrectly, we're moving forward. And nobody's going to remember if you keep moving forward. And that cheerleading ability is key. Really good. Okay. So if that's what makes a great mentor, then what we have to talk about is how in the world this whole mentoring thing works, right? And the first thing that we're going to talk about is the matching process. How do you choose somebody that you think is going to understand where it is that you're trying to go, right? Now, listen, I think we are all brilliant women, and we probably in our own mind have identified somebody that we think, I want to emulate that person, right? And that in itself might be a super match, but maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's not. Maybe they took longer than you have or want to give to get to somewhere. Maybe they seem kind of unhappy in where they are. That match has to be with somebody. And I'm going to say it again. Mentoring is a reciprocal relationship. So we learn just as much as a mentor from our mentees as our mentees learn from us as mentors. That is how the match happens, right? I have a young family, and I have the absolute honor of watching 3 magnificent people turn into adults, right? And I've talked with them about the things that will help them move forward in their career because it's kind of what I'm made of. But I want you to truly think about choosing somebody that doesn't seem like it'll be easy. Choose somebody that you're really going to have to build that connection with. But there's good, right? And there's knowledge, and there are lessons and experience that will be both sides, and that connection will build. Because without it, the knowledge sharing will struggle. And I don't mean that you won't have great casual conversation and be able to chat about this and yuck about that. I am talking about truly being vulnerable and saying, I know you've told me 7 times, but I just don't get it. And I need you to tell me again, and maybe show me too, right? Because that knowledge sharing can take time that we might not have needed ourselves. But when you start to teach other people, you start to learn that people come to things from very different angles. And that knowledge share has to be after building the connection. And so finding that match is really, really important. Because after we share, I have to give you feedback, and you have to give me feedback too. And so providing that feedback is super important. I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. Be timely, be articulate, right? How do you be that mentor? Ask that person. Tell me how you want me to give you feedback and what feels like recognition versus redirection. Recognition in regards to growth is like watering a plant, right? If you water your plants and keep them in light, they're going to do well. And we have to do the same thing with our people. We have to keep them moving forward, understanding their greatness, redirecting where necessary, but recognizing where success has happened. And all of that is really what kind of puts a nice bow on how mentoring works. Before I show you a video, I'm going to ask Heidi one more. Any more that you'd like to add to this slide, Doll? Because I know this is near and dear to you.
Yes. You know, I think what kind of, you know, jumps off the page for me is really the matching process. And I really appreciate what you said, Lisa, with regards to choosing wisely. So again, not to constantly be harping on this. I know we're speaking to a general audience. Some of you guys have businesses that have a bona fide mentor program, needs work, and others of you do not, based on our poll. So I'm speaking in generalities to reach everybody. But the matching process, if it's an informal program, how do you pick? If it's a formal program, it usually is done by the business, right? We're matching it up somehow, some way inside of the senior leader area or team specific. But I love what you said, Lisa, about choosing wisely and choosing someone that will challenge you, because let's face it, we're drawn to like. We're drawn to like same as us. We just are. If I'm mild-mannered and balanced, then I'm going to like mild-mannered and balanced. And that might not get the most out of Heidi. I might need someone that's a little more fiery, a little bit more assertive than I am, because that individual will challenge me, right? So, and I do think it's really important I kind of am a watcher and monitor when I'm choosing a mentor. Like, who are they? Are they who they say they are? Have they done what they say that they can actually do? Right. And not only your successes, but also failures. We learn a lot, most from falling on our face. And so who's rebounded really well, right? Because they can teach you in those moments. Man, you know, I too was in sales. I say I'm a recovering sales addict. I was in sales for a very long time. And some of my, you guys are in sales in a lot of ways. I mean, some of my hardest, times were, how many clients are going to tell me no? And I have this massive quota, right? And then I'm trying to sell out of desperation. And let's face it, nobody wants to buy from anyone that's selling out of desperation, because you seem desperate. And so people that could just pour into me saying, I've been there, I've done that, keep doing this, right? Why don't you tweak this? Let me see how you present. Maybe this isn't working and you've gotten a little lax in how you're presenting this, or maybe the questions you're asking, but you need someone that's going to challenge you based on where they've been. So
yeah, it's about growth. And you've probably heard this a million times, but growth doesn't happen in our comfort zones, right? Like, we have to push ourselves out of the comfort zone in order to grow. But the beauty is that you've probably heard this too, which is once you've stretched, you very rarely go back. And so knowing that you've got to kind of go uphill before it levels out, and you understand the beauty of that growth, is kind of a leap of faith that you're going to take with somebody. And so this matching process becomes really critical. So I want to share with you a short video that Simon Sinek talks about his mentor. I think there are some really great nuggets in here. We'll talk about it after. Okay, maybe not. Oh, darn it. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to send this video to Marion, and Marion can send it to you guys afterwards, because it was just a very casual conversation that I thought would help to kind of alleviate some of the angst we may have created in this matching process, because it really can happen kind of naturally as long as you maintain that open communication. So I'm sorry that I can't play it for you right now, but I will get it to Marion and she'll be able to get it out to you guys. All right. So let's review this mentor-mentee matching. And I'm not sure that I can hear you, so I'm going to ask that you just type your answers into the chat. But what do you remember about this mentor matching? What do you have to do? And I'm going to give you the first answer. Oh, I think. Oh. Oh my goodness. All right. I guess we're not going to review either. This is not going as planned, but I will say this. We kind of spent a great deal of time on that one slide. You're going to get this PDF. Use it as a resource so that you can kind of see how that matching process goes and be diligent to it. It's really important that you are, because what we have to talk about right now is the essential part of this is trust. And it begins with really knowing what you want to be able to accomplish and choosing somebody that you truly think has, one, done it before, has done it many times before, and they also are trustworthy. Because remember, that C that we talked about, that confidentiality, you have to have trust. So imagine a relationship without it, right? You have to make sure that you trust that person and they can trust you back. And so what does that look like? Trust looks like this. It looks like liability, predictability, right? That's the point again of, I don't want to walk into a buzzsaw sometimes and really have you happy and kind to see me other times. That predictability and consistency is how we demonstrate and also develop and deepen trust. Security. What do you think we mean by security? Anybody want to just chime in? I think they can.
Yeah, I'm looking. I'm unable to see chat, but Marion is keeping me honest over here by letting us know, like, if there's any chats. I'll chime in if anyone else is shy. You know, the buzzword here in America is psychological safety. We're in the world where everybody wants to feel safe, including myself. We all do, because the world out there is nuts. I mean, it's just, I don't say that lightly, guys. I'm not, coming at this from a light standpoint. It's hard. And so inside of our workspace, we want our work to be our work. We also want our boss to be our counselor, our church. I mean, like everything. We want work to be everything that we used to go to all these other places for. But there is a level of security that needs to be built inside of the trust relationship with a mentor. And that really comes from, I can share honestly, and I know it because you as the mentor have demonstrated that to me, right? That you're sharing things and you're admitting vulnerability and when you failed and when you flopped and how you rebounded. So you're taking lead to show me that you're doing it, and now I can follow suit. Like when I look at this whole thing, Lisa, Simon Sinek, who we were going to show you a second ago, friends. We were going, that was our intention.
Great idea.
It was a lovely idea, right? Anyway, he's a brilliant leadership developer. If you guys don't know, we don't get paid by him, but he's just a phenomenal leadership developer, book writer, and the whole thing. Talks a lot about how do you build trust? You just go out there and build it. No, that's not how we build trust. No. It's a set of behaviors that we as the mentor demonstrate. For example, when I moved over into the learning and development team, I don't know, 3 years ago, officially over here at Puzzle HR, my mentor here on our team was very, very reliable. Meaning if we had an appointment or a scheduled time, he was there before I was, right? Have you been with a mentor or a leader who's consistently canceling your one-on-ones, moving your scheduled times, right? Let's not talk today. We can talk another time. Okay. So, I mean, it happens to all of us, and I've done these things. But what that does to the recipient, right, is you're not reliable. I can't trust you. You're not predictable. And that makes this go up, right? Now there's a wall because I don't feel important. I'm not important to you. So even though these seem incredibly fundamental, your behavior has to dictate that you're trustworthy, right? And a lot of times your mouth and sharing things with them, you have to take that first step to share that vulnerability in order to get your people or your mentees to open up. So
yeah, it's
just
so
thought.
true. It's the foundation, right? It's like building a home. You cannot do that without a foundation. And this trust is the foundation. So the second part that we want to talk about is knowledge sharing, right? Hands-on group discussions. Think about being an active learner. And I'm finding, honestly, the vulnerability that I'm going to give right now is that I had a period of time in my career where I wasn't a continual learner. And I didn't even realize that until like probably the last maybe 2.5 years, where all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I haven't like read a good book. I haven't seen like a TED Talk in a while. I haven't really reached out and developed myself because I was busy raising my family, right? Which is no excuse. It's an excuse. It's not really a reason. But what I want you guys to remember is even if, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but this is our world. Even if all you do is every month you add a different kind of guru to leadership or to inventory control or to sales or whatever it is that you want to develop into your social media stream, you're going to learn something, right? Because when we read it and it hits us, it sticks with us.
True.
And what I'm trying to express to you is that when you do gain and share knowledge, you start to create a leadership by example. And this knowledge sharing between people, regardless of mentor, mentee, I know we're talking about that, but the knowledge that you gain is always going to increase the effectiveness and the satisfaction of whoever you share that with. And so what I want you to always be, and you should push this down to your mentees, is a continuous learner. There are so many ways for us to learn these days. If you love to read, there's a million books, right? If you want to watch a YouTube, there's a million TED Talks. There's master classes. There are so many things. And the goodness that comes out of individual learning and group discussion is one that is tangible and palpable to measure. And so I just want to say, stay learning and stay sharing. When you know something, sometimes I read things and I think, I got to tell somebody that. I want to tell somebody that because I'm sure it will impact them as much as it impacts me. And that is the mindset of that continuous learner. And it's lovely to be back in that light, honestly. So I give you guys the grace to do that, to share your own knowledge, but make sure that you're continually increasing what you know, how you see things, perspectives change. We have 5th generation in the workforce right now. Things are different. Things are convoluted. Things are strange. And the more we kind of dig in and try to recreate that environment of safety and reliability and consistency and feedback and all of those, as Heidi said, those fundamental behaviors and thought processes, we will go far. We will go farther. And that's what we're after. Okay. So now I just want to share with you how as adult learners, we learn. So we go by here at Puzzle the 10-20-70 rule, which means that what you're experiencing right now, kind of the education around philosophy and thoughts, is only 10% of you really knowing what to do with it, right? The next thing that you have to do is what I just said. You have to share. You have to give that exposure to your knowledge to somebody else, right? Who are you sharing that with? The best way to learn something is to be forced to teach it. And so when you have something that sparks your attention or you think, boy, that's not going to hurt me, I should try that. Share it with somebody. Then you're at 30% of everything that you need to really make that tangible inside you, part of you. The other 70% is experience. But the beauty of sharing is that you've set the expectation that that's how you'll behave with whoever you shared it with. And so now you have to experience it. You're being held accountable to your own idea. And that experience comes from conversation, on the job, practicing it, going out and asking somebody for the feedback about how'd I do? Did I X, Y, and Z, right? Because that is how, as adults, we truly go from exposure, education, and experience creates that well-roundedness that we need to be able to give that back. So that is our philosophy here. If it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, go and find something that does in regards to how you're going to take in knowledge and what you're going to give back to your mentee, and do it. Then go and do it. Now, here's the beauty of that. The reciprocal part of this mentor-mentee relationship is the more often it's less formalized, the more often you're going to get good feedback about your own performance. And that is really important, not only to the mentee, but also to you as the mentor. Knowing how you're doing, how am I hitting? What does your growth look like? Because you're going to grow too with that person. And these adult education philosophies have a lot to do with probably the way that you'll approach things. So again, if this resonates with you, the education, the exposure, and then the experience, use this one. But there are plenty others out there for you to just go and learn about and figure out how you want that to be part of your mentor relationship. Anything from you, Heidi?
I'm chuckling, if I may, because they're about to learn what this is. We're about to put it to the test here in a second. Well, in their lives, I'll say in your careers, because we're doing the 10% with you guys right now in this webinar, how to be a mentor. You're going to retain about 10% of our material. As fantastic and engaging as Lisa and I think we are, right? I mean, we try to make these not boring. So you're welcome. We've all been to boring, presentations where your head is hitting the table, and we're trying to not do that. But unfortunately, just based on stats, you don't retain what you don't practice. So, you want to retain all this mentor stuff because you've given us an hour, but you're only going to retain a small percentage. Where the rubber will meet the road is when you start doing it. When you start doing it and bumbling, like, what did they say? I can't remember. It's been a month. What were Heidi? Who were those people that talked to us? Right. And can I get the deck, or let me call Marion over there? Like, what is happening? You'll really start to learn it. It will make sense. Like, oh, you know what? Confidentiality is really important because I blew it. Or communication is important. They don't even know what I'm telling them to go do. They're confused. I need to be a better communicator, clear, more concise. I rambled too much, or, didn't share that process well enough, or whatever. So you'll experience your own growth here in this as well. So case in point, that's why I was smiling.
Yeah. It's nice. It's nice to grow while you're teaching somebody else, right? It's like the best of both worlds. Okay. So let's talk about experiential learning, because that is, we're going to kind of use this as an example of what does it all mean, right? When you're thinking about preparing that experiential learning for your mentee, make sure that you have an objective. Why are we talking today? What do you want to gain from this, right? Because preparing for those sessions and creating those scenarios, or inviting somebody to be part of a situation that they will learn in, demands getting organized. And I am not saying that you always have to go through a laborious organizational, but if it's a really good lesson for somebody, make sure that you're taking the time to say, while we're in this meeting, I'd like you to look for A, B, and C, or I'd like you to participate by X, Y, and Z. Creating those types of things and organizing them to happen is really the best way for people to learn that experiential, that experience of having situations, right? The other thing that actually, you know what, I'm going to give you the last three because I like the way you explain best practices scenario. Go, you go.
Sure, I'll go. So this is just our example here at Puzzle HR here. When we built our mentor program, we wanted to tell the mentors, this is what experience looks like. This is when you're sitting down to knowledge dump on people. Don't get frustrated when you dump all your knowledge on them and they come back tomorrow and say they don't even know what you talked about, right? So here's how you teach, right? And then actually have them demonstrate. Let's have them demonstrate. Here's some examples, how to prepare for a meeting, right? We have salespeople in the organization. They have to prepare for meetings with, you know, their people that give them leads, or, you know, a new client, a new prospect, or what have you. What do you do to prepare for that meeting? Here's what I pull up. Here's where I go to research. Have the person that you're sitting with, you've told them how to do it. Now have them do it and you watch and you give them feedback. That's an idea. Or what are your best practices? For me, one of the things that I have mentored, I don't even know how many people. One of the things that I do very well is staying organized inside of my calendar. And I know that that's very difficult in the virtual world because we can overpopulate our calendars with a laundry list of meetings. So what do I do to feel prepared for meetings? So I would share, you know, here's how I block my calendar to prepare for certain calls. And here's where I do all of my follow-up work and email. So I don't have, you know, 500 emails at the end of a day and I'm now having to work in a weekend. Here's how I manage my time. Like I own my calendar so other people don't own it. That's where I shine. Like, what are your superpowers? In other words, you can call them best practices, whatever you want. Difficult scenarios. That's always really good, like kind of role playing. I know people clinch when they hear the word role play. Oh my gosh, is everybody going to be watching me? Right? Ugh.
It's so powerful though.
It is.
And that is why people hate it, because it's powerful. Yeah.
Right. Because we're pulling you right into that experience. Let's talk through that experience with a difficult client or a difficult coworker or a difficult partner that has a personality that you just don't align with and it drives you nuts and you don't even want to talk to that person. Let's talk about it. Like, what's your mindset when you go into that conversation? Let's switch the mindset. You know what I mean? Let me hear what you're thinking, and then let me challenge that and pull you forward and try to get you to stay neutral inside of that conversation. And one of the things that we do, because we found that it works really well, instead of role playing, since we're virtual here at Puzzle HR, a lot of people like to record themselves demonstrating some particular skill if they're talking to a client or introducing themselves or pitching a particular thing. They record themselves and then send it to the mentor, and their mentor can watch it and give them feedback. If it's constructive, give them feedback live. Right. Because, you know, things can get lost in translation in email or Zoom or text. But if it's positive, fire away. If you want to, fire it away. So these are just some examples on how to pull people into experiencing whatever you're trying to share, whatever knowledge you're trying to, you know, impart on them inside of your mentor-mentee relationship.
Thank you. Brilliant. And as often as you can, it really does make a difference. Okay. So providing feedback. This is really critical to all of the C's. This feedback creates consistency, creates confidentiality, creates all of that communication. And I want you guys to know that people want it, right? So there's a stat there. 65% of employees desire more feedback. I would say it's 99% of employees desire more feedback. It's that at some point in any given month, quarter, year, we have doubts about ourselves and our abilities and our futures, right? And if we never get feedback or only sporadically get redirection, we will be lost with only half of what we really need. And feedback is the way to communicate your achievements, your strengths, your opportunities. And I always say this, err on over communicating, err on it. I'd rather you think you've said it and say it again than not be sure you ever said it. And here's the beauty of that. If somebody, most people need to hear things more than once, right? And when we're providing redirection, it's not that we have to be doing that with a hammer, right? I don't need to bang you on the top of the head in order for you to hear me. I just need to couch that between where you are and where I know you want to be. And how is it that you use the lesson to move forward versus constantly be questioning whether or not the next time you do it, it was right. It was what you expected. It was what somebody else expected of you. That feedback is so important to all levels. And giving constructive feedback is truthfully a huge component of the relationship that a mentor and a mentee is striving for. Without it, it's just a guessing game, right? And nobody wants to guess about how they're doing. Now, you might have a mentee who says, just tell me. I haven't heard from you in a couple of days. I'd really like to know what's going on. I'd love your feedback. Okay, now you've got a wide open door in order to give that. And that is a gift, right? But some people are not going to just ask for it. They're going to think no news is good news. And that's not always true either. So what I will say to you is err on over communicating in these relationships. Provide redirection where it's necessary. Give them the direction and the support that they need to move forward. Because I will tell you, what you learn about yourself as you go through these processes is what you get out of being a mentor. That is part of the reciprocalness of it. And giving feedback is a means for strengthening that relationship and the results. And that's what this is all about, right? So please, if nothing else, you've heard me say, I'm going to err on over communicating in this relationship. Keep it focused, right? Because people will want to know how much you care about them moving forward consistently. And that's really what we're talking about. Okay, I'm going to give you guys some of the best practices we here at Puzzle use in providing feedback. First of all, it's to redirect or reinforce, right? Positive or constructive feedback needs these thumbs up behavior. Be specific. State the facts, but be brief, and then ask for input. Because what people are going to do, and you need to do the same, is they're going to seek to understand, how do we never get in this situation again? How do I avoid the need for redirection, right? But listen, I always say to people, I love a mistake. Go ahead, make them every day. Because if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning as quickly as you could, right? So redirection is not bad feedback. It's redirection. What we don't want to do is ever bring feedback from somebody else, meaning, well, Heidi told me that when she heard you, None of that nonsense. If you didn't see it or hear it, it is a question and a conversation. It is not feedback. Now, feedback might come after that, but you don't want to use a third party or come to it emotionally. You all know what I mean by that, right? Yeah. We've responded to emails and hopefully put them in our drafts, or maybe not. But when emotion is involved in feedback, it usually doesn't just end with the feedback conversation. The other thing that you want to try to do are these three things, and I'm going to kind of group them together. Don't label, don't sandwich, and don't paintbrush. Okay? Labeling means every single time I talk to you, Heidi, you've always got that beautiful smile on your face. Aren't you ever mad? Right? Don't label people because it creates bias. And bias is really hard in constructive feedback. Don't sandwich. It's an old-fashioned way of, I saw you do this. I didn't like that, but I love this, right? Don't sandwich between two compliments what somebody needs to change, because they're always going to be waiting for the but when you give feedback.
Right. And
paintbrushing. Wide strokes. Well, you know, it's just occasionally I kind of worry about that. Not normally, kind of. Mm-hmm. Be specific in your redirection or reinforcement. It's very important, and it will remove some of the emotion that we sometimes so fret about. If we stick to these, and here's the truth of it, in human communication, when our intention is good, our motives will stay there too. When our intention goes bad, our motives go with it. And so when you can't do the positive thumbs up things, lay low for a minute. Regroup.
Right.
So
pause,
that you don't,
right?
Yeah,
take a pause, for sure. Take a pause.
You don't want to be forced into a situation of recovery.
Right, for sure.
Just
been there.
Bad.
Right? Been there, and Lisa. And I know we're right at the hour, and I want to honor everybody's time. Such great dialogue. Yeah. We can pull, you guys will get a copy of this deck, right? They will?
Yeah, we can send it out. We can definitely send it out.
Thank you, Marian. I appreciate it. Yeah, so there's a lot of great information on here that you will have. We gave you more information than we had time for today, but we can pull some of this into our next session.
Absolutely. I will make a point of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Idea. Yeah, for sure.
All right, I'm gonna finish, but if you have to drop off, by all means, drop off. Will the session end, Marian, or is it okay?
No, you're good. Okay. You're good.
I just want to talk about rewards and recognition, and that is making sure that as people grow, we are their cheerleaders. We are giving them the rewards and the recognition that are important to them and comfortable to them. And I say that meaning if somebody hates to be called out in a room, don't do that. That doesn't feel like recognition. But if somebody's all about being the center of attention, go on. Make them the center of attention. Bring out the beauty in what they've accomplished. Also, one of my favorite things is a handwritten note. I think it is a great way to connect. It's an amazing way to really pause and put your thoughts, and it's just super effective. So you'll get this as well. Then I'm going to just pass over this just to say, if we haven't already told you the benefits of you being a mentor for somebody who needs that relationship, you're going to benefit from it too. But here's the way that they're going to. And I hope we see you again next month. I really do. And I also hope that Heidi and I were able to give you great information. Don't forget about your materials. Grab those out of here so that you have them. And thank you so much for attending. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for joining today. I am so appreciative of Lisa and Heidi. Thank you again to both of you. If you want to reach out to either of them, please connect with me and I will get you their contact information. There will be a brief survey in the follow-up email, just 5 short questions. We'd appreciate it if you fill that out. And lastly, we want to keep these webinars free of charge for all of our attendees. So if any of your companies are interested in sponsoring an event such as this, like the upcoming event on August 14th, please reach out to me. We would very much appreciate that. We want to keep all of these inclusive for everybody to be able to join. So yet again, I cannot thank Lisa and Heidi enough. I so look forward to seeing you both again here in a few short weeks. So everybody, please use the link in the chat to register for that one, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.